Good afternoon, everyone. I am really happy to have everyone here with us today. In our last conference for the day, it is a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker for the day, who is going to talk to us about the specialization in English language learning and teaching. Elin Emilsson studied anthropology and linguistics at the Brandeis University in Massachusetts. She completed a master's degree in Latin American Studies from the Faculty of Political and Social Sciences from UNAM, and she obtained a master's degree in language science from the University of Paris. Currently, she is a full-time teacher at the UPN, as well as a teacher at the Centro de Enseñanza para Extranjeros from UNAM. Since 2018, she has been a member of UNESCO's Executive Committee from Language Policies for Multilingualism, which is a honorific position that has allowed her to create an international perspective of languages as a goal in the area of sustainability. She has also co-authored at least 14 didactic materials, and she's the author of several specialized articles in the matter. We encourage you to share your ideas and comments with us through the chats. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Elena Wilson.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carmen, and hello, everybody. It's still kind of strange to be talking to a screen and assuming that there are a lot of people out there, or maybe nobody, but I can see there are at least 10 people. In any case, I want to greet everybody and start by thanking the authorities of Las Normales for inviting me to this very interesting event. Mario Chavez Campos, the Director General of Higher Education for the Magisterio, Ruben Enriquez, who's the guilty party for inviting me, Subdirector de Enfoque de Contenidos de Niveles, and César Romero Mojica, Director de Desarrollo Académico de la DGSUM, and other authorities for your kind invitation to share with you some thoughts and experiences regarding our in-service teaching online English teaching program. Also in the name of UPN, of CEAL, Centro de Enseñanza y Aprendizaje de Lenguas, and of my colleagues who were part of the development team and all of the team of tutors, I believe it's an excellent opportunity to exchange ideas, and why not open up to the idea of establishing good collaborative ties among those people involved in English language teaching at the Normales and I'm seeing somebody's greeting me. Oh my God, I'm getting nervous. Okay, so anyway, shall we start? Unfortunately for technical, because I already I couldn't do my plan A. I'm already in plan B mode. So Carmen or Diego are helping me change the screens. I don't see the screen, so I don't even know what is being shown. There you are. Thank you. So my talk is called The Specialization in English Language Learning and Teaching at UPN, Adapting to the New Scenarios. And believe me, there are quite a few new scenarios. And another part of the plan B and plan C is the fact that I was thinking of this would be like a half hour, 40 minutes. And but now I have a lot more time, which is terrible because we talk like como los gases, we fill up the space we have, right? So I might talk overboard, but no, because I do want to listen to you. I want to see your, and I'm very interested in bridging looking for bridges and ways and perspectives. This talk is about perspectives. As Carmen mentioned, I belong to the Centro de Enseñanza y Aprendizaje de Lenguas de la UPN, la Universidad Pedagógica Nacional, and we have, we're fortunate to be part of this UNESCO chair, Políticas de Lenguaje, Language Policy for Multilingualism, which is, of course, what I would like to center this talk on. So, continue, please. Next slide. The idea that I will be the talk will first, I'll be talking about what it is, this specialization thing, what it is, what are its main features, how has it fared over time. We've had a program evaluation, and then get on to the new scenarios, as I'm saying, and what is, where new scenarios of English teaching in Mexico, and also the general world situation where, this pandemic has reminded us of the unity of our this planet, all the good side of humanity plus all the horrible sides that we all share, right? And so that's the new scenarios. And then where do we go from here? I will present some results of a very short, very small study, that pilot study that we have just set in place to see how the specialization is faring. So next slide, please. And part one, our story. Next slide, please. So the specialization, la especialización en enseñanza y aprendizaje de inglés como lengua extranjera, modalidad en línea, is a 10-month program, 540 hours. It's a graduate program, so you need a BA degree, a licenciatura degree. It's for in-service teacher development, like a logic of actualización y regularización. It's totally online, which when it started in 2012 was still pretty novel. Now, forget it. The question is, when are we presenciales? We never are. We're all online. It was launched in 2012, and it was at first it was part of this thing called Catálogo de Ofertas de Formación, which was part of el Acuerdo CEP CENTE. So you can see the kind of links we have in our history, right? And it was created in a collaborative program with the Applied Linguistics Department at Georgia State University, Atlanta, Georgia, with a TIES grant funding. TIES meaning training, internships, exchanges, scholarships, as seed money to encourage institutional projects. So this was already a very interesting concept. Unfortunately, this TIES thing didn't prosper. It was about the last time they had it. But the logic, and it has worked to a large extent for us, is that a university in the US and an institution of higher education in different countries, in this case Mexico, get together and work together towards a common goal. And in this case, it was a broader plan. I won't get into all the details, but the outcome, the basic outcome, was this graduate program. Originally, we had thought of actually having more like a master's or we never got into the licenciatura, but it settled on the especialización. There's a long story, as in everything, of why it was that. But in any case, it was a wonderful experience because our colleagues, I want to acknowledge John Bunting, Gail Nelson, and if for some reason Jose Villafuerte is around and can hear, he was there, he was a witness to this process. And was very interesting because it's a different concept. It's a concept of collaborative work always. And John Bunting, Gail Nelson, and other colleagues, but especially I would like to acknowledge John Bunting for his wonderful attitude precisely in sharing and creating ideas together. So next slide, please. To get into more, what las intríngulis, what was lay behind this? We were coming from Mexico plus Georgia State. So we were putting heads together. And of course, we had instructions from our rector at that moment as to what her idea was. But in general, and other people at UPN, but in general, we were asked to, we got together and we worked together on this project. And what I'll explain to you what lies underneath this logic. You have in-service teachers with at least 1 year experience. So it's not people who knew it, who were already trained. That was not the idea. You needed to have an undergraduate degree in any field. Originally was thought of for middle school at that moment. We actually started working on this in 2009. So that's still el sexenio de Calderón, so to speak. So the PENIEB was still en pañales. It wasn't there. And the basic thing was working with the with the middle schools. So we thought, okay, we'll target that. But we knew deep down, I knew it in the back of my mind that we would be very soon catering to a much larger cohort of levels. We were interested in cover a wide span of locations, age ranges, genders, levels of education, teaching experiences, etc. The features are 3 modules, topics. Module 1, what do we teach when we teach English? How do we learn a language? Teaching methodologies. Module 2, skills and technology. Module 3, intercultural competence, evaluation, and assessment. Next slide, please. So this is what underlies the idea. First of all, and this was something that I felt very strongly because I had, I already at that point, I had already had about 20 years of experience doing, among other things, teacher development. In UNAM, I worked for UNAM, the CELE, and in the curso de formación de profesores del CELE. So I, and I had been asked on several occasions to revise different planes de estudio for secundarias and for high school. And so I knew one thing, I was very aware of one thing. There's a very big divorce, or has been, or was at that moment, divorce between theory and what actually goes on in the classroom. And teachers were taking courses and they could quote Krashen y para arriba y para abajo, but they were not getting the point across. Okay, no, and I'm not criticizing teachers. It was just something that wasn't working. So I figured the one thing we can try to do is focus on classroom teaching. Of course, now our poor students for this year, classroom teaching, where a dónde quedó el classroom? That's the big question. The other thing is reflection and development of a teaching philosophy. That's a contribution from Georgia State. That's what they're having on. Why? Because we want teachers to become the best versions of themselves, and we want teachers to be individuals, not un engrane más en algún in some decision that comes from the top. Teachers have to know what they're doing, have to want to do what they're doing, have to be committed to their students. And of course, we want them to have the best working conditions and not be exploited and all that. But that's unfortunately, that's not something we could deal with. But we're trying to do this. So the other thing is, because it's an online thing, and in general, we wanted to have collaborative work. Of course, focus on technology. In 2009, when we started working on this, technology was actually pretty novel. And what I call the paradigm shift. No matter how much people were talking about the communicative approach, at that time, things have changed quite drastically, believe me. But at that time, still, it was, sí, el enfoque comunicativo. Sí, aquí se saludan un día, and ahora a aprenderse verb to be. I am, you are, he is, she is. And I knew that was not the way. So you need a paradigm shift. You need to actually get into the logic of the communicative approach. Make it learner-centered. It is very, very difficult to make something learner-centered when you as a teacher are getting orders from the top and saying, you're supposed to make it learner-centered, but then you're getting an order. It doesn't really make that much sense. It's like saying, you have to be democratic, and then you do something like take an initiative. Hey, that's not right. Oh, but you told me to be democratic. No, but that's not the way to be democratic. It's teachers. We all know how difficult, in what a difficult situation teachers are. So the idea was to really help them get into those logics, like language and use, learner-centeredness, intercultural skills, meaning not just, which of course is important, what do they have for breakfast in Canada? True. But that's not the whole picture of intercultural communication. And of course, another aspect was improved English language skills. So our ideal kind of candidate was actually one that we knew existed. Nobody acknowledged it, right? But we knew existed, which was the teacher. Es que estuviste un rato allá en el Gabacho. Pues eres ingeniero. Pues no importa, ¿sabes algo de inglés? Pues date clases de inglés. O eres maestro de matemáticas. Hay una plaza aquí, como estuviste, y la calle es de inglés, pues te toca inglés. We know this phenomenon. And so we, rather than go against it or it's a natural thing, but how do we actually help strengthen strengthen the quality of teaching given these circumstances? So next slide, please. So we have had 9 generations. We will be starting the 10th in August, and considering it's an online course, we've actually, the last few years, we've had more of a ratio of graduates, up to 67%. This year, we will be having 67, almost 68%, which is a very high rate considering the fact that it's online and the fact that we were working under the pandemic. So we're quite proud of that. And we have, I don't have the statistic here, but we've had graduates from all over the Republic, from all the different sectors of education, with all kinds of levels of their own education, and with pretty good results. We did a study before in 2016 where that I will mention now, where we can show that students that are participants in general felt quite well. So now next I'll give you a brief idea of what in this 2016 study, we actually gave a talk in Mexti. Well, we actually had a poster in Mextisol a few years ago, which is where I'm drawing this from. The students meaning our participants' perceptions. We called it the "I love the contents, but I hate the wikis" thing, and it was what you could see the question durante el módulo 1, ¿qué es lo que más te gustó durante su tutoría en la EAILE? Elija los 3 principales motivos. And what they will say are what is their big ones are los contenidos del módulo, la tutoría. In general, people are satisfied with our tutoring because it's quite individualized. And el acompañamiento. And when asked cuál es módulo 1, qué es lo que encontró menos significativo, elija los 3 principales motivos, and they said the big ones, las actividades como grupo de notas y los wikis. They just basically hated the wikis. And so we started analyzing it. They even said la siguiente, please. They said things like, wikis are necessary, but we're not trained on how to use them. Moreover, there are many processes involved, such as getting the main ideas from the readings, interpreting, summarizing, expressing themselves, and writing the ideas needed to get the message across. Or one of the things that I don't like about forums is that some students, including myself, prepare their arguments based on what I've read before, but some other students just contribute with ideas that come out of their minds without reading anything. So, this me colgué del otro syndrome is not very well received, right? So analyzing that, at first, some of my colleagues would say, es que es el individualismo mexicano, ¿no? And I say, no. There are a lot of factors. Let's try to understand them. So next slide, please. Yeah, but I'll just give you a brief idea of what this is about. The idea is that there are at least 5 different dimensions of advantages and disadvantages to the work, the collaborative work online. Collaborative work in general is hard. Collaborative work online can be even harder. So this is based on some research and some hunches that we still have to confirm. We have social and cultural dimensions, such as cultures where individual responsibilities and work is of great value, and hence students display difficulty in working together along and they feel threatened and being in the defense position for fear of having their work stolen or feeling that other students can take advantage of their own. The advantages, on the other hand, we need to tend that problem, because it is a fact. People sí se cuelgan, and somebody does all the work and then the other 2 also get the credit, and that's not fair, right? So we have to think of how to solve that. But it's also true that there is a cultural aspect where you're protecting your own thing. So the advantage is educational socialization practices where students share with each other ideas and beliefs, fosters a democratic culture, and everybody is listened to by the others. And it fosters a culture of mutual support and dialogue, of openness, fosters the creation of communities of practice. But you need to feel that you trust each other. And so, of course, that's the main thing that has to be figured out and gained, is the trust. There are cognitive challenges, such as collaborative work is a cognitively complex process which requires not only formulating one's own ideas, but also listening to others and undergoing processes and comparison and contrast of the ideas in order to reach a synthesis of the conceptual framework that emerges to dialogue. And of course, the advantage is that you develop higher order cognitive skills once you can actually get over the hump. In terms of psychological challenges, understanding and processing the diversity of points of view requires concentration and memory, requires a very positive attitude, requires open-mindedness, must follow netiquette rules. No, those are some of the big problems. And in all social media nowadays, not being able to follow netiquette rules, falling easily into, insult mode and stuff like that is very complicated. But well-handled feelings of gratitude and affection are enhanced. Understanding of others is highly motivating. Positive attitudes are developed. Logistic and technology, I won't get into because I don't want to spend more time, but I can share this PowerPoint with you. Coming to terms with meeting times, it's one of the things that you'll notice that I'll explain that one has to learn is and become very disciplined is time management, and in general, and of course language skills. Language skills is really strengthened through collaborative work, because you have to not only write, you have to communicate with others, and of course that means improving your language and communicative skills. Next, please. So when we saw that, these are the kinds of strategies that we developed, and we have more or less set in place. We still have to improve. Is two dimensions: training, grading aspects of collaborative work. Grading, not in calificar, but having stages. Learning to use technology, blogs, sites for individual work first, and then having them express individually, and then, well, we didn't do it this time. We had them work collaboratively from day one. And then by using and doing this kind of collaboration, we establish communities of practice in and of itself, which is one of the important things that in general in our world is necessary today. By levels of education, by common interests, we have, students, our participants who are working with elementary, they work together. In junior high, they work together, and so on and so forth. Okay, next, please. So now we get into part two. This is more or less give you an idea of the AILE, and now what are the new scenarios that we're faced. Next, please. I'd like now to briefly go over where we're at. We were kind of left off in the sexenio pasado, life in Mexico turns around the sexenios, especially in the educational field, but at the same time, there's continuity, which is extremely important. You are probably all familiar with the study by the empresas privadas. I think Claudio X González or Mexicanos Primero or something like that. We're in charge of that. But I have read this piece of work quite carefully to understand it and to analyze it. And the basic assessment is that it has a lot of good things. It has a lot of information, but it's wrapped in a very strange kind of perspective. Strange, I don't know how to qualify it, but just look at the picture, right? It says sorry with an I, and then there's a tache con Y. that's already saying, yeah, these people, they're son burros, and then you have this girl rompiéndose la cabeza, like, oh, what do I do? Because I don't know instructions in English. We all know that in English we say, when if all else fails, read the instructions. But most normal human beings of that age, they can figure things out with or without instructions. So it's kind of demeaning. It's actually, I would say, quite insulting in my personal opinion, to have it and play that up. And now we have the La Nueva Escuela Mexicana, which is, we all know, that's one of the things I'd like to discuss with all of you, teachers from Las Normales. How is this being implemented? I've been trying to read, and I don't really grasp what's actually happening. But what is very interesting is that it's already looking at language as pretty central, much more central than before. But I want to insist, there is a continuity in conceptual continuity, and I must say, very good state-of-the-art work in general in the Mexican curriculum design. The curriculum designers issued from the CEP around language teaching, and very interesting. I would have nothing against against those, but it's more in the implementation and how it actually becomes real, what actually happens in practice. But and also on the discursive side, as I say, the SORRY document has a lot of interesting information that I'm going to show you in just a sec. But it's wrapped in a very, very strange ideological that we can analyze, and that where you can see if you're con ganas de criticar, you can see that they're basically thinking more in terms of having the Mexican public become good workers. Really, there's kind of more emphasis on that, but they say a lot of other things. So next slide, please. Here, just which is one of the outcomes of this study, is that you can see that both students, así, los niños de 10 still had really low results in this exam. I've looked at the basis of this exam. It's a communicative approach. Are you able to use the language? Are you able to understand the meaning of what is being said, rather than just pleasing the teacher or doing a plana? And los niños de 10 or de 9 y 10, they flunk. They're all in A1. Well, A1 más, okay, good for them. But they're supposed to be in B1. This was for middle school. And in general, young teenagers, in general, they're in A0. They don't even, they can't do anything at all. So this was in 2015, 6 years ago. I don't know whether exams have been taken, but I really think a lot of things have been happening since then. So it's one of those things that we can discuss, will be very interesting. So next, please. What the report's perspective about English is, and it is very contradictory. English is a right to learn with and in English. They're into content-based. English to enable access to technology so you can fix your radio. It's actually some obsolete apparatus that is there. English is a lingua franca to access not only English native speakers, but also speakers of other languages. English for improved job opportunities. Believe me, that's a very important part of the text. English bilingualism in general for brain development. There's an argumentation, no, for how being bilingual is good, but it's kind of interesting because they do marginally mention multilingualism and all that. But I'm thinking, you have indigenous peoples that are bilingual. They speak Mije, Zapotec, Mixtec, Tzotzil, whatever, Nahuatl. And they don't seem, well, of course, English is the business of this talk, of this work, but you might think that it would be important to emphasize. They do mention it, but there's something very ambiguous about it. And English for democratic participation and citizenship competency, and English for improved social equality. This is the way it's handled, is that English is a human right, and that this whole monolingual ideology of the Mexican state is wrong. But it's believe me, it's so much more complex than that, because Mexico, remember, first of all, the whole world was into monolingualism up until very, very recently. So it's not like you can blame the Mexican government for being, into monolingualism. And the beliefs up until the 60s was that bilingualism was bad for your brain, and bilingualism among indigenous peoples was bad. They had to forget about their indigenous languages to be able to start to integrate into society. Those are all ideologies that were not proper exclusively to Mexico. Let's face it. And the academics were not helping change that people's minds. So fortunately, things have changed since then. But I wouldn't, blame Mexican nationalism for this idea. It's more like a general thing, but that's the way it has been. It's presented in the study. So to conclude, it's a somewhat ambiguous discourse with it's critical of centralization. At the same time, it promotes it because it promotes decision making from the center. Critical of monolingualism and for plurilingualism, but promotes English as a right with bilingualism only at the front. So, but the general educational policies, and which I really believe is important, una política educativa para el aprendizaje de una segunda lengua tiene una raíz sólida cuando parte de una política de Estado sobre la interculturalidad, una estrategia integral de implementación para el plurilingüismo y un acceso continuo y con certeza a la información estratégica que es relevante a su propósito. So, that is something that is like a recommendation. And that I would really, endorse. In general, educational conditions, lack of qualified teachers, structural conditions, mucha política y poca política pública, that I also believe. So now we're next. Where are we now? Since then, we have the Nueva Escuela, which, in a sense, all those things that were being said in those sexenios, the last two sexenios, technically are being set in place. A belief or apuesta por el plurilingüismo de México, and so English, we see English more as a contributing, and believe me, we have a lot to contribute as English teachers, because English applied linguistics issued from amazing people like Christopher Candlin, one of my heroes, Henry Whittleson, Michael Bream, Michael Byram also. These are all people that have a very, very broad perspective and based on real solid research that can contribute to precisely changing the perspective that English is the language of the empire. And no, we have to work together using all of the ideas. So that's one of the scenarios that we're seeing that we need to work with. We have the digitalization of the world, impossible to hacernos a un lado. There's just no way out. We have to make the best out of it. But I would say we need to figure out a way to make it less commercial. And of course, we as teachers have to play a role in helping students navigate in this jungle. Basically, it's a jungle. The digital world is, and it can be a very dangerous jungle. So we have to work on that. Human rights, citizenship, democratic culture are all part of the issues that we have to deal with. It's like our role as teachers and as teacher developers has become kind of central, really, in the way things are happening. We are faced with climate change, natural disasters, pandemics, migrations. Now, one of the scenarios is that we have Mexican population coming back from the US. Who knows what's going to happen now, but in general, at least in the last two administrations, including with Obama, there were a lot of deportations. And so we have the population coming back to Mexico and speaking English and actually being discriminated against by speaking English or not being able to understand how to move to learner-centered classroom. How can you shape some? Very good. But believe me, I don't have any answers yet. I think we all have to work together. Migrations, organized crime. Organized crime is something that involves us all. Like, we have to figure out ways, and as teachers, understand what's going on, because we are all victims of this, this scourge that has to do with digital, the freedom, the dark, how do you call it? The dark web, all of that. So we have to, what does that mean? That we have to be working with security, trust and security for our students and for ourselves, of course. Next. Yeah, so as the last thing, I'm winding down. And I actually have taken a lot of time and still. Next, please. Part 3, what do we do? Where do we go from here? Taking a stance, we have to figure out what we've got, what we need, what are we for, what are we against. We do have to take a stand. And I put this cartoon from the late 60s or early 70s with Pogo. Pogo was, I don't know if he's still around as a cartoon character, had this, it says, Pogo, the beauty of the forest primeval gets me in the heart. It gets me in the feet, porcupine. And then he says, it's hard walking on this stuff, totally contaminated, polluted forest. And then Pogo says, yep, son, we have met the enemy, and he is us. I always remember this phrase from the 70s already. We have met the enemy, and he is us. Let's not look for the enemy somewhere else. The whole pollution, climate change, all of that has to do with our modern, this optimism of production, industrial production, of the land of milk and honey in our Judeo-Christian culture asks for unlimited progress, unlimited everything for, and now we're at a point where we have to understand that we need to have limits. We need to be sustainable. We cannot be going on producing and producing and producing. We're seeing the oceans. We're seeing all of that has to do with, of course, education and solutions. I mean, you can't educate if there isn't an action. So there's no way out of this. We have to be thinking together. Next. Let's all, God, Luis Pasteur, you're doing, I'm going to send you back those questions. So the steps, what I'm thinking, where are we? We have to, again, this is what, we have to take a stance. We have to know where we're at. And well, in our modest little program, the specialization is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about being the president of a country or anything like that. Just our own little terrains where we work. In our case, the specialization. Work, understand the Nueva Escuela, multilingualism as a natural condition in human society and against discrimination, because one of the problems is the link between language and identity, and in general, it's a pretty natural, I would say, it's not just modern society. Any outsider is criticized. So if you speak funny, you're criticized. And of course, we're in a stage of human society where we have to also be thinking of we have to be understanding the differences. We have to, we understand that a person who has Down syndrome, not his fault that he has a lot of things going for him or her. We have to change our mentality. Unfortunately, as we are all seeing, and we saw it with Trump, it's like we were going back to this basic kind of nasty human nature. But I think we all have, and especially through education, we can access higher order thinking and different views of empathy and in general understanding the situation. So I have to see the others. Let me just check. The English to access other communities of practice, not just more jobs. I work with indigenous students in the Licenciatura de Educación Indígena, and I keep on thinking my indigenous students in this licenciatura have so much to talk about and discuss and show and actually teach many of the indigenous communities of the United States who are in this situation of total degradation. So a creative turn of the role of English in the world, English for general human development and critical thinking. As I say, I mean, it is have created a lot of thought, critical thinking, right? So of course, work on that. Digital and digitalization to promote collaborative, non-commercial communication and creativity, not conflict or gain. We have all these two temptations, they're all there. It's extremely commercial. I have noticed literally in just the last 2 years, I think because of the pandemic, things got a lot worse. I have anytime, just to give you my own personal little example, I was trying to, I finally am thinking maybe I'll travel. And before it was easy for me to get into some kind of a platform, a travel platform. I have, it's this this huge jungle of options that I have to click on and then click on and then click on, and I never find anything because all these like weeds, they come and I can't see what I'm looking for. So it's extremely difficult nowadays. And of course, English to promote planet sustainability, we have to be working with that. There's just no way out of it. So next, just to my other step 2, this is okay, this is where we're at. So I did a little survey with the students that we have now. We have now 90 students in the specialization, 45 of which answered the survey. And here are some statistics about what their the perfil is. It's a pretty standard. This is more or less the perfil that we've had. People from 30 up are our students because they're in service teachers, of course. And and it's interesting because you have people from 50 to 60 plus with us, which is, I think, very good, because we want to reach all the people who are in the educational sector. The level taught, they're basic, which is just goes to show, where we're at. The level taught is mostly elementary. You can see, elementary 31%, university 20, elementary or university. The levels of English taught, basically beginners. It's kind of like el eterno retorno. Of course, if you're teaching elementary, you would be teaching basic beginners, but it doesn't seem to be going further than that. In my experience at the university, they're always teaching the same level. I'm always teaching level 1, and it doesn't go beyond that. It drives me nuts. Years of experience. Most of the participants have a lot of experience already. If you notice, they're 37 have 37% have 38% have 11 to 20, and 20, and let's say it's almost 50% have more than 11 years of experience. Original fields of studies. So we're still, fortunately, this is that's what we were aiming for. We have a lot of people who are coming from other fields of studies, mostly arts and humanities, but also science and engineering. And the ELT or similar majors, normales, they comprise, it's about 20% at most. Mm-hmm. Anyway, what do they tell us? Just next, please. What do they tell us? Why did they want to? What were their expectations? They wanted their credentials. They wanted strong theory, understanding. They wanted novel techniques, resilience, and adaptability. And then the results, in general, very positive. Well, they answered. The people who answer usually like it. You don't usually complain unless you have a real strong reason to complain, but just only 2 out of the 45 expressed dissatisfaction. And what they said is new tools, classroom teaching, online in 2020, they strengthen theoretical knowledge, use of language acquisition theories to work on the pandemic. That's one of the things. And just becoming more organized are the results. What about their perceptions of the ILE strength? What are the strengths? Next, please. Please, next. this idea precisely, you see how it's changing. The wikis and all that were like, at first, no, but this year people were actually much better performers of wikis and just collaborative work in general and sharing their work. Reading classmates' work is one of the things that they said. Working in teams, they was good learning experience, feeling more confident as a teacher because they understand the theory where they're working from, actually becoming better users of technology. They liked this. We have a final project. The final project is all about classroom teaching, and they work. Everything they've done over the year is like has to be reflected in the final project. It says here, I like this quote: "The first time I had access to an education that inspired me to become a universal learner, capable of learning anything at any time and continue improving my teaching skills." Well, this person made my day, believe me. Being able to recognize my own mistakes, it was tough yet incredible, changed my idea about teaching. The strengths, again, the content, I love the content. It's very funny because our contents are pretty basic, language acquisition theories, methodologies, language theory of language, as in, pragmatic, sociolinguistics, language and use. And that seems to not be being taught, at least not in teacher training courses or something, but our students really believe that it was a strength. We didn't feel that it was such a big deal, but for them it is. As effects of the pandemic, next things they have learned, I had to, they had to change teaching strategies. They all learned empathy, understanding, patience, and resiliency. It's just amazing how all of us as a humanity, this is why humans will survive. We're so resilient. Here, look at this. I got ill from COVID-19 in January. I had difficult times of extreme stress. My school was not prepared for the transition to online education. Some teachers were not well prepared. The lack of strategies on how to teach well online were a real challenge. The EILE program opened my thinking to new ways of working with my students to integrate technology in the teaching learning progress. Pretty God. I feel that no, we don't deserve this, But anyway, what do the next one, and I'm done, okay? The next, because I really want to all of you guys to talk. What from their perspective, keep the intercultural perspective, strengthen multilingualism, more emphasis on computer-assisted language learning, not just apps. It's true. I think we really have to get to the bottom of things, how everything, UNESCO calls it the knowledge society, and we're all, plugged in. And of course, it's an opportunity. It's a great opportunity on the one hand, but it's also a big risk. Let's face it. We're losing so much in many ways. Also, we're losing a lot of autonomy. We're kind of slaves up to a point, whether we like it or not. We still don't realize it. I get a lot of. This is a joke. I get a lot of cellulite just sitting. They want more monitoring students to help face online education. We're kind of doing that, but we have to learn as tutors and teachers. We really have to get our act together. That's what I'm very clear on. Planning lessons with flipped classroom, really, really working that up. More information on different levels of education. De facto, we've been working with all levels, but we don't give them that much information. And I think it is important. I agree with whoever said that. Continue what they like, things like the progress tests, the contents, the VCs. We have video conferences at least once every 3 weeks, but in general, once a week or once every 2 weeks. Academic discussion, individualized attention. It said, one quote, this program provided an immersive, intensive English language learning environment to increase our teaching skills, language fluency, and technological strategies. This online self-paced course was designed to improve our teaching competencies from the comfort of our home at a very low cost. Yeah, unfortunately, it costs very little, unfortunately. And the little money that comes in goes to Hacienda, so we can't benefit from it, which is not nice for us. I mean, not that we want money in our pockets. We would like to have more money to develop more things in the specialization. So the last step, putting it all together, we need to get our act together, multilingual, democratic, human rights oriented, sustainable perspective. Language teaching and learning is central, not peripheral to human and social development. This is one thing that gets to me all these years. Sexenios van, sexenios vienen. Inglés is Mickey Mouse. And language is Mickey Mouse. Well, it's like, oh, and anybody can decide on what their policies are. I think as a gremio, we as a group, we have to get our act together. We have to really be very proactive in helping, not imposing, but just being part of having this world and Mexico understand the centrality of language. ICTs at the surface of education and knowledge, striking a balance between commercialism, ease of communication, access to information, and tools for human development and sustainability. Updating and adapting theories and methods of language learning and teaching. We have to get more. This is note to self and note to group. So to conclusions, a new and improved version of the ILE will require an overall adaptation to new circumstances while keeping its strengths. Work together with all educational instances, high normales, strengthen teaching and language skills. Work together to establish educational policies that place a central role in language development linked to critical thinking skills, intercultural communication, and celebration of diversity, collaborative work, and active use of digital skills. Thank you very much. So that's it. We still have at least 20 minutes, and I actually I stretched it because I had to fill up the space, but anyway.
It's all right. We have actually some questions that we could probably address.
Yes.
One of the questions was made by Livio, and he would like to know if you would recommend this course for a seasoned teacher or for a novice teacher.
Well, as you notice, we had the span of everything. People from with 1 to 6 years of experience. It's for in-service teachers, so most of them already have experience. It was originally thought of, as I said, as a como regularización y actualización in this scenario that has changed quite a bit since then, because thanks to the normales, we have teachers who are actually specialized in English language teaching. And then when we interview them, I say, hey, you were overqualified. Why do you want to be? Well, there's always a challenge, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Maybe they think it's going to be an easy way to get a degree, so they register. But we want to keep the seasoned teachers because, we want people who are who are there already in the action, because so that we can give opportunity. It's not like we have that much. We have things to say, of course, but it's more like a platform to discuss and actually give opportunities for their own teaching practice and actually refining their teaching methods over this year. More questions?
We have some from before. The first one that you picked through that was by Luis Pasteur, and he asked, "What would you consider the latest tendency in ELT?"
I don't know. I just said, I wasn't thinking of anything specific,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just in general, intercultural, for instance, intercultural competence is still requires a lot more work in how to, include it. And because intercultural communication implies it's not just knowledge, as Michael Byram showed. It's knowledge. It's knowing how to do, knowing its attitude. It's knowing how to research. Savoir, savoir faire, savoir être, et savoir savoir. And so I would strengthen the whole intercultural thing and multilingualism, understand, but I'm not exactly sure what, the trends in ELT, which ones you're talking about. I'm thinking not just ELT, language in general, language teaching in general. My position is that, and I really believe that because I worked at the Cele for many years, and I could see how we as language teachers, we had access to so many ideas about what language is, about what language teaching is, and about education in general, and about cultures that we can offer to everybody in the educational sector. So I would think language teaching. I'm working with indigenous languages, and I'm thinking Claire Kramsch is a researcher in Berkeley, and she has set forth the concept of symbolic competence to add to the intercultural competence, and I believe it's very useful for indigenous languages, because one of the things we want to make sure indigenous languages keep is their own symbolic world, a symbolic set of values, So, and all of that comes from our field of language teaching and applied linguistics. So
we have another question here. It says, "What's the most important strength of your academic program?"
That I would like. There's some of I see some. As you notice, I asked that question in my little survey, and one of the things that they said. They said they like the contents. They, I love the contents, and I hate the wikis. They love the contents, and as I say, I wonder why they love the contents. It's so as if we were doing something original. We're not doing anything original. We're drawing on applied linguistics and second language acquisition. Maybe we're thinking what we did was to digest. We don't have our participants actually read a zillion texts. We did the digest. We did digests, and we try to play up and emphasize the concepts without simplifying them. Maybe that's the strength. It seems that it is individualized attention. We have 15 people per group. We started with 20, and we give a lot of individualized attention. But it would be great for some of my students, I see, or some of the people who have been and who have that experience to give their opinions. I would appreciate that.
Yes. We have here another question from Eduardo Torres. What would be your wish list to improve the commitment about English learning teaching in Mexico? What would you ask for more?
Yeah, let's all get together, folks. Absolutely. What do I ask? In a sense, I think we all want education in general to improve, right? And of course, one of the requirements is have more funds, better administered. Not just more money. We need better administration. But and how to administer that, I don't, so that it won't go into the pockets of the whoever's. We need smaller groups. Let's face it. We need smaller groups. We need teachers who are better paid. We need teachers better paid who don't have to go teach at 3 schools, morning, vespertino, de tarde y nocturno, that's what they're doing. And, I'm just very amazed at our colleagues who do all that, and then están frescos como una lechuga in our program. So, do you think this would be suitable for a BA in applied linguistic graduates? I mean, yes and no, because we're going to be updating it next year for 21-22 cohort. No, 22-23 cohort. We need to, but the one thing, and I really, hey guys, Irena, if you're there, Irena or whoever, please comment, those who have been living through the experience. But I do know people who can quote Krashen, who can analyze any topic, who have written amazing essays, and they go into the classroom and they're working with pollito chicken, or they're being very authoritarian. Now you have to do this for tomorrow or whatever. They're not sensitive classroom teachers. So having a BA in applied linguistics is great. If somebody actually, we're not going to be having 240 people in our new cohort, and there are a number of people who are. And I told them, hey, you're overqualified. Why do you want to be with us? And for some reason, they want to, lo toman como reto, no? They want to convince me that they're good candidates. And I want to believe them. The truth is that you can have a lot of theory, but being able to be a good classroom teacher is not as easy as you think, And so actually applying your theories, we have them also do a little bit of, classroom research. So yeah, I mean, I think I do believe that it can be a good thing.
Yes, we have here a question from Irina, and she says, there are still students and teachers who consider speaking English as some sort of betraying Mexican nationality identity. I've had to deal with such arguments. What's your view on that?
Exactly. We have to work with that. But this is one of the challenges. Of course, one of the how do you say that? Reality, representations of reality are more real than realities. Okay, and ideological representations are more real, and we're seeing that every day, all the time. How one idea you have, and then you qualified and you judge the other by your representation of things. And as I say, Mexico has over the decades with the nationalist ideology, constructed an idea of English as la lengua del imperio, which it is. Let's face it, it is. It's true. But that's not such a good strategy, because you see in the precisely in the sorry document, because as I say, I've analyzed it quite carefully in terms of the discourse. It says, no, es que los caudillos y el nacionalismo was very damaging to the people, which is true to a large extent, because that's how, while everybody was being anti-gringos, the indigenous people of Michoacán and they were all going to the States because they didn't have the right conditions here. Who was exploiting them? It wasn't los gringos, it was the capataces de los mexicanos, the upper class. Sorry to sound here very revolutionary, but there's a lot to be said about that. So there is a lot of ambiguity and a lot of hypocrisy too. But the other el otro argumento, which is the underlying one, ideological one in the Sorry document, is that it's a human right. Learning English is a human right, but it's not to promote equidad. I mean, it's what it says, but you read between the lines and you notice it's more like to create workers who speak English so that they can get better jobs. Here, the thing we and that's where I think there has to be kind of a national movement. We are in a situation where maybe we can create this administration needs a more structured ideology regarding English. And of course, it has to do with being able to communicate on an equal stance. You're going to be listening to Ramon, or already to Ramonia Smith and Araceli Dufus from Jamaica. And we're working in Jamaica with Jamaica, the Normales. Some teachers from the English teachers from Normales are participating in this program, where English we want to promote Jamaican English in the schools here. Why? Because Jamaica is a cool country. There's so much going for it. So we have to be very subversive in the sense that we want to change the perception of people of who is who has the status. No, la rubia superior or Bob Marley, So I used to, I was the first one to point out that because in the sexenio de López Portillo, they were all against English. It was a very, very strong nationalist program against la penetración del imperialismo en el inglés, del francés y del inglés en el español de México, la defensa del español de México. I'm not blaming them. I think that there's something to be said about that. I'm thinking in terms, because I work with indigenous languages. Of course, I believe their language has to strengthen and improve and not be permeated completely by borrowings from Spanish, because it's the hegemonic language. So it's more like, let's do it. Let's do some creative work here and work on creating different representations of English. I mean, English is Shakespeare is fantastic. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Applied linguistics, British applied linguistics is so good that if you see the Spanish, because I work with Spanish as a foreign language too, all the literature about Spanish, Enseñanza de Español como Lengua Extranjera, it all goes back to the roots of Widowson and Canlin and all that quarter. Why miss out on that? That's you shoot yourself in the foot. Mm-hmm. So Anything
Well,
else?
thank you very much, Elin. I think we have taken up the whole of the session. So
And
right
as
now, I would just like to thank you for this session. I also like applied linguistics, and I think everything that you're mentioning now, culturally speaking, and this whole thing about linguistic imperialism will be a whole different session in itself.
of
Yes.
course, of course.
So I would like to present you now with our participation certificate.
Thank you.
And let me just share with our audience. So here we have it, okay?
Thank you very much.
So, la Benemérita y Centenaria Escuela Normal de Jalisco otorga la presente constancia a Elin Emilsson Ingvarsdóttir por su valiosa contribución como ponente de la conferencia magistral The Specialization in English Language Learning and Teaching at UPN, Adapting to New Scenarios, en el marco del Congreso Nacional de Formadores de Inglés C en Escuelas Normales. Thank you very much, Elin, for your contribution and your participation in this last talk of the day. And I hope that you can join us next year again for the
I'm
Congress.
tomorrow. I wasn't able to
Yes.
today, but I definitely don't want to miss out on your event tomorrow. And thank you very much. And I really would like, let's do some serious talking about collaborative work with Normales and UPN in terms of English language teaching, and I mean teacher development.
Exactly.
Thank
So thank you very much, Elin. Thank you
it.
everybody for joining us. We'll be seeing you tomorrow with Ramoni Smith and Araceli Dufus tomorrow 9 a.m. for our opening talk of the second day of this Congress. Thank you again, Elin.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.